Princess Lyra Vale learned she was to marry a human in a room that smelled of incense and surrender. The Imperial Council stood beneath the crystal dome, pretending this was strategy instead of desperation. And Chancellor Sarek delivered the decree. The marriage to Captain Adrian Vale of Earth would secure the Terran alliance, calm the border houses, and keep the Empire from fracturing after her father's assassination. Lyra heard only humiliation. Her throne was unsteady, her court was terrified. And the men who had failed her bloodline were now offering her hand like tribute. When the human entered, she expected triumph, but Adrian looked as displeased as she felt. Tall, scarred, uniform plain against Keller silk. Jaw set like a soldier bracing for impact. "I did not ask for this," he said. And half the chamber flinched. Lyra hated him anyway, because hatred was easier than admitting relief. The ceremony was all gold chains, oath seals, and polished lies. Then the court withdrew and left them alone in her private war room, where Lyra finally let her fury breathe. "Did your people celebrate?" she asked. "Did Earth cheer when it was handed a cornered princess and a dying empire?" Adrian removed the ceremonial clasp from his collar. "Earth sent an officer, not a groom," he said. "Your ministers wanted a symbol. I prefer problems that can be solved." She took a step toward him. "Then why are you here?" "Because somebody murdered your father, compromised your fleet, and is about to break this empire from the inside," he said. "And your court is too busy arranging silk to smell the fire." The marriage had lasted less than an hour, and already the human sounded less like a husband than a warning. Lyra should have dismissed him, but he began asking questions nobody else dared ask. Why had grain convoys vanished under escort? Why were palace relays sending coded bursts at midnight? Why had House Morovin recalled frontier troops? Why had Sarek redirected the assassination inquiry twice? Within days, he had the trust of servants, junior officers, and archivists. Then one night, he placed stolen dispatch copies across her table. "Your father was isolated before he was killed," he said. "Sarek covered it, Morovin financed it, and the border houses are moving now because they think the throne is blind." Lyra read the proof until rage made her hands cold. "Why tell me?" she asked. "Because they underestimate you," Adrian said. "And because they still think I am here to stand pretty beside you, let them keep thinking that." The invasion came 3 nights later, not from distant space, but from treachery inside the walls. Morovin forces opened the western defense gates, while hired cruisers dropped from shadow lanes above the capital. Alarm bells screamed, nobles scattered, ministers vanished into hidden tunnels, and Lyra stood on the command balcony, watching her inheritance split under fire. "This is why traitors prefer weddings," Adrian said beside her. "Everybody important is already in one place." Then he moved, not like royalty, but like a battlefield commander who had been waiting for the first shot. He seized the defense grid, rerouted palace shields to civilian districts, abandoned ceremonial choke points for reactor bridges, and sent a Terran burst code through private channels the conspirators did not know he carried. When one Kellery general refused orders from a human consort, Adrian looked him dead in the eye and said, "Then disobey me after you survive. Until then, move." The general moved. By dawn, the palace had become a fortress run by the very man the court had mistaken for decoration. Lyra fought beside him through smoke and broken marble, and he taught her the brutal arithmetic of survival. Shorten orders, protect power. Protect medics, protect children, save pride for later. When assassins breached the inner hall, he killed 2 with a guard rifle, took a blade through the shoulder from the 3rd, and still threw Lyra behind cover before firing again. Later, blood soaking his sleeve, he gave her a grim half-smile. On Earth, this would count as a terrible honeymoon, but the Empire was not saved by one officer alone. It was saved because Adrian understood what Lyra's court had forgotten. People obey crowns, but they endure for those who stand with them. By the 2nd day, he had engineers reinforcing floodgates, dockworkers repairing shield couplings, teachers organizing shelters, servants carrying ammunition. Every overlooked hand in the capital became part of the defense because the human consort spoke to them like citizens instead of furniture. And Lyra, watching fear become structure under his command. Finally understood why humans were so dangerous, not because they loved war, but because once they chose a side, they gave it everything. Logic, sweat, blood, grief, stubbornness. Humor in the middle of terror, every part of them went forward together. When Terran strike ships finally broke from orbit, they came because Adrian's signal had carried only 6 words. "The Queen stands, send me time." And Earth had answered with fire. The moment the first Terran rail strikes hit the rebel cruisers, the sky seemed to remember that humanity was a small species only until it decided not to be. By sunset, Maravan had fallen. Sarek was dragged from a bunker beneath the Council archives, and the rebel coalition broke against a capital that refused to die. On the 4th morning, Lyra stood on the highest balcony of the palace, smoke still rising behind her while the surviving houses knelt below. Adrian stood at her side with his arm in a sling, ash in his hair and exhaustion carved into his face. The marriage that had begun as an insult had become the wall between empire and ruin. The crowd first chanted for their empress, then for the human, then for both. And Lyra turned to the man she'd once seen as a chain around her throat. "Why," she asked softly, "why save an empire that was never yours?" Adrian looked over the damaged city, then back at her, and his answer was simple. "Because once I gave my word, it became mine to defend." Lyra took his hand and raised it before the empire. And in that moment, every noble, soldier, and survivor understood the truth. They had forced their princess to wed a human for politics, but the human had stayed for loyalty, fought for strangers, bled for a throne he never wanted, and by doing so, saved not just her empire, but the soul it had nearly traded away.